You know the feeling. You're just minding your own business, maybe driving, trying to fall asleep, and then, bam, your brain serves up a high-definition replay of that one mortifying thing you did a decade ago. So, let's get into why that happens, and, way more importantly, what the science says we can actually do to stop it.
Right. Why does our brain have this, special folder for our greatest cringeworthy hits, but it can't remember where we put our keys 5 minutes ago? Well, the answer is actually a lot simpler and way more fascinating than you might think.
First off, let's give this thing a name. These aren't just random, mean thoughts your brain is having. Nope, it's a real psychological thing called an intrusive memory. And get this, it's not a bug in your system. It's actually a feature, just a really, really annoying one. This Reddit user just nails it, don't they? It feels exactly like your brain has a special, high-priority filing cabinet just for your most awkward moments. And it turns out, from your brain's point of view, that's pretty much what's going on. So why does your brain treat these memories like they're important files? Well, it all goes back to a very ancient survival alarm that is still hardwired into all of us today.
Okay, so think about it like this. We evolved to live in these small, super tight-knit tribes. And for our ancient ancestors, being seen as weird or incompetent could literally get you kicked out of the group. And back then, being alone was a death sentence. So your brain developed this incredibly sensitive alarm system to remember and constantly replay any social screw-up just to make sure you never, ever did it again.
And this analogy is just perfect. It really hits the problem on the head. Your brain's software, it hasn't really been updated. It can't tell the difference between a life-or-death tribal rejection and that time you called your teacher mom in 3rd grade. To your brain, the smoke alarm shrieks just as loudly for both.
And this is not just a figure of speech. Social rejection literally hurts. Neuroscientists put people inside fMRI scanners and found that the sting of being rejected lights up some of the exact same parts of the brain as physical pain. So that feeling of humiliation, on a brain level, it's very, very real.
So if this is some deep ancient instinct, what are we supposed to do about it? For decades, the popular answer has been just have higher self-esteem. But well, the data tells a completely different story.
We've all heard it, right? Just feel good about yourself and those cringy moments won't sting so much. High self-esteem is supposed to be this magical shield. But one really interesting study decided to actually put that idea to the test.
Okay, so let's really dig into this, because this slide is the absolute key. Researchers made a distinction between 2 ways we talk to ourselves. On one hand, you have self-esteem. That's evaluative. It's about feeling good because you're winning or you're better than someone else. It can be pretty shaky. But then there's self-reassurance. That's supportive. That's the ability to be kind to yourself when you fail. It has nothing to do with your performance. So, the researchers wanted to know, when that critical inner voice starts yelling after an embarrassing memory pops up, which of these things actually protects you? Which one stops you from spiraling into feeling awful? The answer was, well, incredibly clear.
So let's actually look at the data from the study, because the story it tells is pretty undeniable.
Now this chart might look a little intense, but it's actually pretty simple. The line across the bottom is how self-critical someone is. The line going up the side is their level of depressive symptoms. And those 2 lines you see, they tell the whole story. They show what happens for people with low versus high levels of self-reassurance.
So let's break this down. See that really steep, solid line at the top? That's people with low self-reassurance. For them, the more self-critical they are, the more depressed they feel. It's a straight shot up. But now, look at that dashed line at the bottom. Those are people with high self-reassurance. For them, the link is almost completely gone. Even when they're highly self-critical, their depressive symptoms stay flat. It's like the self-reassurance acts as a shield, completely blocking the blow.
In fact, for the people with high self-reassurance, the statistical connection between beating yourself up and feeling depressed became non-significant, basically 0. Self-reassurance wasn't just helping a little bit, it was acting as a complete buffer, totally neutralizing the negative impact. And here's the real shocker, the part that kind of flips everything we've been told on its head. The researchers ran the exact same analysis for self-esteem. And what did they find? Absolutely nothing. Having high self-esteem did not protect people from the negative effects of self-criticism. It just wasn't the shield we all thought it was.
Wow, that is a huge finding. But why? What is actually going on inside our skulls that makes self-reassurance so powerful and self-esteem, well, not so much?
Well, the answer lies in the neuroscience. It turns out, self-criticism and self-reassurance aren't just different moods. They are running on completely different tracks in your brain.
Yeah, brain imaging studies show us that these two things are not two sides of the same coin. They are fundamentally different mental programs running on different hardware inside your head.
So when you're being hard on yourself, you are lighting up the parts of your brain tied to threat detection and error processing. It's that ancient survival alarm going off. But when you practice self-reassurance, you activate totally different areas, the ones linked to empathy and compassion, the very same systems you use when you want to care for someone else. So let's just be super clear about what we mean here. Self-reassurance is not about telling yourself you're perfect or that you didn't mess up. It's the skill of being gentle, supportive, and encouraging with yourself, especially when you failed, just like you would for a good friend.
And this really is the whole game right here. The goal isn't to get into a wrestling match with your critical thoughts and try to pin them down. It's about making a conscious choice to just switch tracks, to activate the brain's caring system instead of its threat system.
All right, so let's wrap this up. That embarrassing memory on repeat, that's just your brain's old, outdated survival alarm. We've learned that high self-esteem, which is all about judging yourself, doesn't really protect you from the fallout. The real shield, the true buffer, is self-reassurance, that active skill of treating yourself with kindness, especially when you stumble.
And that leaves all of us with a really powerful choice. The next time that cringy memory ambushes you and that critical voice starts to pipe up, you now know there are two completely different systems in your brain you can turn on. So, which one are you going to choose? The threat system or the care system?